Well, there are three types of disasters which can go on to be required to be managed of sorts. Of course, there are a variety of types, and from that angle, one can go on to see if the content of the syllabus is going to be disaster management in India, then it will be a variety of types of them. But we assume, and our assumption can be wrong, we assume that the disasters in India go on to be comprising only of some 4 or 5 of them. For example, landslide, for example, avalanche, for example, earthquake, for example, flood, for example, drought. Now, these are the type of disasters that can go on to be there. Of course, a separate part can go on to be associated with the management of the overall disaster in the country. That is a possibility. That is going to be one of them. Now, coming to it, what we all require to know within this topic is the meaning of the topic called as landslide. Now, we repeat that part. Landslide is only one type of mass movement. What we are going to be talking about here is, as part of meaning is concerned, that it's a topic associated with mass movement. Of course, the topic is going to be landslide, but all in all, it is a topic of mass movement. That means whenever some of these things go on to get weathered, then it is this type of weathering that goes on to provide, that go on to allow some of these materials to fall along the slope, and that is called as mass movement. We are talking about that part. So all of these are going to be forms of mass movement. Mass movement is one form of denudation, and that is if materials have been weathered, then all of those weathered materials go on to fall along the slope, and as it is that they go on to fall along the slope as per the gravity, following gravity, that is called as mass movement. And this can go on to comprise of creep. Creep is a very, very slow movement. It can go on to be in a soil. When the soil is going to be soaked, for example, in some places, let's say it can go on to happen in the upper reaches of Ladakh, and when the whole of the soil goes on to get frozen, it's going to be called by the name of permafrost. The whole of the soil can go on to get frozen because the temperature is low throughout the whole of the year. And in summers, when it goes on to thaw out, that means when it goes on to melt. In the summers, when it goes on to thaw out and when it melts, then in the process of its thawing out and in the process of its melting, it will go on to allow some amount of material to move along. It will go on to allow the whole of the soil to start moving in a creeping-like manner. Very, very slow movement. Solifluction is the name that is going to be given to it. That's one. Second is it can be a slump. Slump can be it can be a whole movement that can go to take place. That is, it goes on to slump, it goes on to sink, it just goes on to collapse. That is going to be slump. Avalanche is going to be leading to the snow movement, a very, very fast movement, and in the process of its movement, the speed that it can go on to acquire can go on to be stupendous, very, very fast. That is going to be one of them. Then we're going to be having earth flow. Earth flow is going to be the type of movement, earth flow and debris flow. The one type of movement that took place perhaps in Ladakh. That is, the whole of this place, Leh particularly, not in Ladakh, Leh particularly. The landscape of the Ladakh region, Leh region, is going to be very, very, very dry. Now, consequently, what happens being dry is that is, in trying to be dry, it goes on to soak a lot of water when it rains. It normally doesn't go to rain in that desert at all. But it did happen that some 10 years back it did went on to rain. And when it went on to rain, it did rain very, very heavily. It was a 6-hour long superconvective shower, and unconsolidated material of which the whole of Leh is made of was turned into a slurry, and it started flowing. It was almost like a flow of mud, flow of earth, whatever that you can go to say. That was it. And last is rockfall. Rockfall is that you can imagine this portion to be having a rock attached. If this rock falls, if that topples, it just goes on to fall. That is going to be called by this name of rockfall. That is the name that is going to be given to it. Now, there can be a variety of types of it, but we assume that these are going to be the general meaning that is going to be assigned to landslide. Now, this landslide is going to be taking place in some specified regions. Distribution we are going to be talking about. For example, of course, it is going to be taking place in the Himalayan region, and in Himalayan region, landslide, avalanche is as common as a day-to-day activity. Of course, people going to choose a place to live in those Himalayan regions, which do not going to get affected by landslides, and people are wise enough in this case. It's maybe that in some exceptional cases, there are going to be some structures that have been made to such an extent that they go on to be prone to landslides, or they can go to fall, or they can go to topple also, or they can go to block the landslides as well. But in general, people go on to be adapted to that type of situation. So one of them is going to be the Himalayan zone. In the Himalayan zone, there are going to be a variety of type of zones. So one of them is going to be the area close to that of MBT and the MCT, that is main boundary thrust or main central thrust. That is going to be one of these areas. Then it is going to be another of this area that is important in this case, and that another area is going to be associated with the Kumaon Himalayas. That is going to be the second one, and of course all along National Highway 1. All along National Highway 1 there is a place called as Khuni Nala. Now, it is this place called as Khuni Nala where the rocks go on to topple, they go on to get themselves dislodged from the top and go on to fall. And sometimes when they go on to fall, they're going to take trucks, buses, cars, or anything lying on their path along with them. That is what is going to be called by the name of its distribution. That's one part. Of course, the second part is going to be Western Ghats. Of course, we going to be talking about Kerala floods. In the wake of the Kerala floods, some of you people may have observed that there was a massive landslide that took place not at one, not to two, but several other places. Landslides have been very, very uncommon in Kerala, largely because the rocks are going to be very consolidated. But it took place, that must have been because of mining, quarrying, or many other activities as well. And that is going to be the third zone, is going to be the Nilgiri Hills zone. And in all of these regions, it goes on to take place because of many factors. One of them is going to be lubrication. Now let's take that part. How is it that this type of a lubrication can go on to take place? Supposing this is going to be a hill region, and that is how the case is. What will going to happen is that these regions going to get filled with water. All of these regions going to get filled with water. These regions going to get filled with water, and they start moving. So if there has been any type of a road or anything that has been constructed here, the whole of this slope will go on to get itself destabilized. That is going to be because of lubrication. Second is maybe all along this zone, possibly that is going to be again a road, and there are going to be some type of fractures that have taken place here. This is the type of a fracture. This is the type of a fracture that has developed in this zone. That is the type of a fracture. And because of this type of a fracture, rock fracturing that has taken place, the whole of this portion is liable to some degree of a slippage. Fractures go on to induce. What they're going to do is that they're going to induce instability in the region. That is, even if they are going to be stable, they're going to induce it more. And then we're going to be talking about earthquakes. Now, when we are going to be talking about earthquakes, we are essentially talking about some type of a zarring that the surface will go on to expose itself to, zarring of the surface. When the surface has been zarred, shaken, when the surface has been jarred, then most of the soils will go on to become loose and they will start collapsing. Even though there may not be any chance, but then the shaking of the surface will go on to loosen anything and it will go on to allow it to collapse. The third part is erosion and excavation. Excavation can go on to be, let's say we are going to be talking about slope. This is going to be a slope. That is how it is. Now, all of a sudden, what we're going to do is that we're going to excavate this region because of mining and because of quarrying. Now, because we have excavated this region, this is the one zone that we have excavated. the whole of this slope is likely to collapse. That will going to lead to landslide. We are going to be talking about erosion, and if it is that, supposing so that the whole of this region has been devoid of vegetation, this vegetation has been removed, then this slope will also go on to collapse. That is where exactly it will go on to lead to. And when we are going to be talking about erosion and excavation, excavation can also go on to be taking place all along that slope. For example, this is the type of a slope. We have created this slope for the purpose of transportation. Now, the overall slope stable water was this one. This was the normal slope. And we have excavated this slope for the purpose of creation of this road. Of course, we have gone on to make this slope whole and all in all unstable. Last is going to be the addition of weight. When we are going to be talking about all of these aspects, and let's say we go on to be constructing a pillar here, this is the place we're going to be doing it. That's where we're going to be constructing again a house on which we have constructed anything. And if it is that these are going to be putting some amount of weight here, this is where the weight is being put up. And because of the weight that is being put up here, of course, this is going to be leading to the instability and failure of the slope. That is one part. We are going to be talking about causes. Now that goes on to bring us on to control. The first is going to be drainage control and dewatering. Supposing that this is a place along this that is going to be on the slope, and in the mountainous region that can be there. This is where the water goes into accumulate, has a tendency to accumulate, has a tendency to accumulate. Now this water may go on to come here and may go on to affect this road. Our first purpose is not to allow this water to accumulate. No accumulation has to be provided. And even if it is that the water accumulates, we must go on to provide on the top some type of a passageway through which the water accumulation is going to be completely prevented. That is going to be one part, and this is the best way perhaps by way of which we can go to deal with this situation. Of course, we cannot go to prevent the landslides and we cannot go on to deal with landslides in such a manner, but and some there can be some amount of a warning system also it can be there. But then we can go on to control certain type of ditches for this purpose. And ditches means this is another place. For example, if this is a slope that is going to see some instability, what we can go on to do is that in this region we can go on to provide a ditch, and we can go on to provide in this zone. This is where exactly we can go on to provide some weep holes, through which all of this excess water will go on to come up, and that will go on to get accumulated in the ditch, and then it will go on to move. This is going to be one of them. And we can also go on to, in the landslide prone zones, it can be, we can evacuate water by filling up the drains and small basins and extracting subsurface water by pumps or by any other means also. We can go on to entrap. That means we can go to entrap water in some place, we can go to entrap water, and also we can go on to divert water. These are the methods that can be applied. That is going to be number 1. That's going to be A, drainage control. That's going to be number B, C, and D. So that's what we have talked about. That is going to be number A. Second is going to be talking about vegetating damaged slopes. Now, there's nothing that can be better. If it is that the slope is going to be unstable, plant trees. You can go to cover it with coir as well. If it is going to be in Kerala, you can go to cover with coir. Also, that the whole of this place, if this is going to be loose soil, you can go to cover it with jute also. If it is going to be loose soil, you can go to cover that with jute as well. And if you're going to be covering it with jute, that will going to allow a quick growth of vegetation. And that is going to be an international norm right now. That is, in order to allow this to grow, you're going to cover it with jute, and you can go to allow quick growing leguminous grasses. What jute will going to do is that jute will going to get itself soaked with water. Now, as jute goes on to get itself soaked with water, the soaking of the water will going to get transferred into the soil. The soil will also going to get soaked. Now, the soil will remain protected with the beating rains, but the soil will go on to remain soaked. And once this soil has been soaked, then you can go to plant certain things in the soil. And once you have planted certain things out into the soil in this region, once you planted certain things, then these plants will start growing faster, growing longer. And once they start growing, after some time, jute will going to get ruptured, and that will go on to give way to the growth of the plants. So the vegetation is likely to come up in these regions with the help of covering of jute and coir in this case. That is going to be B. C is going to be slope modification. We are going to be talking about slope modification. Now, one of those things that we can go to do is that we can go for benching. This is going to be one of the methods. What benching goes on to do is that benching will not going to allow, it will not allow a very fast movement of water to take place. Benching will not going to allow very, very fast movement to take place. That means the movement will go on to be controlled of sorts. That is one part. Then you can go on to lead to contour bunding also. Contour bunding, that means all along this slope. You can go on to create such type of bund. You can go on to create such type of bund. You can go on to create such type of bund all along it. That's going to be called by the name of contour bunding. That's going to be another one. The second is going to be associated with if it is going to be a slope. Let's say this is going to be a slope, and that is where a road is. That's the place where the road has been. So you must going to provide here with holes. That is one place where holes must be there. Now these are the ones that are going to be called by the name of weep holes. Weep holes. That's one. And at the base of it, as we said, that there can be a ditch. This is provided with it, and this is something that can take place. We are going to be slope modification. This is one way in which slope modification can actually go on to take place. When we are going to be making weep holes and roads, and the last of this is going to be creation of certain type of pressed anchor pads. That is going to be here, and you're going to be covering it with some pads. This is going to be a pad. Concrete pad, it can go on to be a vegetative pad, any one of them with which you're going to cover the whole of them. That is going to be slope modification. D is going to be pipes, bolts and shear. Now the meaning of pipes, bolts and shear can be, you can understand it, for example, assuming that this is a slope. That is going to be one of the slopes, and you're going to insert one of these type of screw holes here. One pipe, another pipe, another pipe. So you're going to have a series of pipes all along it. Now these pipes will go on to look like, supposing this is a slope, that is how these pipes will go on to look like. This is the way that these pipes are going to looking like. So much so that if anything goes on to fall from the top, they will be able to hold it. That is going to be the meaning of pipes, bolts, and we're going to be talking about shear keys. Now what is happening right now is, that is all along, supposing this is going to be a slope, and this is how exactly you have this is how exactly that you have created certain type of inserted certain type of bolts in this place. Then in all of these zones here, what you also going to do is that covered with a net. And most of these slopes, all along the slopes, you have covered it with a net, steel net, so that it is this steel net that will go on to prevent any type of movement taking place. This is something that will go on to find it happening here all along Konkan coastal region. That is going to be one. That's part. If you go to Switzerland, you will also go on to find more or less the same thing. That means you will go on to find in Switzerland, once you have moved into this place, once you have moved into this region, then in the process of movement, in this case, in this zone, you will go on to find a lot of nets that are going to be covering there, and there are a lot of other aspects that are going to be presented, so that nothing that goes on to fall, it can go on to be falling completely on the ground. It will be left standing on such type of a steel structure that has been inserted into the rocks along the slope. So it is like one of them, the second of them, the third of them, and overall there will be a steel net that will be framed. This is about landslide. So what exactly is the meaning, the causes, and its distribution, control and management. That is all about landslide.